Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. I'm your host, BJ Odom. Each week we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving a 5-star review and subscribing, and follow us on your preferred podcast platform. Have a transplant story yourself you'd like to share, or comments about the podcast? We would love to hear from you. Just email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast, as we welcome you to episode number 78. Today, we share the remarkable and ongoing journey of Jennifer Lentini. Jennifer's fight began as a teenager, and on July 6th, 1996, she received a heart transplant that gave her a second chance at life. But her story doesn't end there. Nearly 3 decades later, at just 42 years old, Jennifer finds herself back in the fight, joining us today while on dialysis at the dialysis center, waiting for a kidney transplant and preparing for what looks like a second heart transplant. Through it all, Jennifer's courage and love for life shine as a reminder of just how powerful organ donation can be. This is an emotional, heartfelt conversation that reminds us all why transplants matter, because they are not just about survival, but about hope, second chances, and the gift of life. Let's listen and learn from Jennifer's story, which is coming up next. Welcome to episode 78. And to start things out, let us get to know just a little bit more about Jennifer.
My name is Jennifer Lentini. I live in Wantaw, Long Island. When I was 13, I had a heart transplant. I was a really healthy child. I actually was a competitive baton twirler. I played softball, basketball. I wasn't the best at sports, but I played them. I had a pretty normal upbringing. I actually have a younger brother, though he's 6.5 years younger than me, and he was born with a hole in his heart. So really, in my family, everybody watched after him. So did I, as his older sister. And everybody watched him. He had open heart surgery when he was 2 years old. And then pretty much out of the blue, I started having stomach pains after my 13th birthday, March 4th of 96. And it was really frustrating because I wasn't the best scholar, but I ended up going to the nurse's office all the time by second, third period in middle school. They were calling my parents up and they were getting frustrated because nobody really knew what was happening. I had these stomach pains, but I was going back and forth to different doctors, my pediatrician, even the emergency room. And they pretty much just kept telling my family that I was becoming a woman, that there was really nothing else going on. So I was frustrated because I knew that that just wasn't it. And so was my family. And I kept going. It was sort of like Groundhog's Day every day, same thing. And finally, about a month later, I went to my pediatrician and he sent me back to the emergency room. And there was a doctor that had told them, she's presenting with stomach pain, so we'd like to do exploratory surgery. When they went in to do the exploratory surgery, I ended up going into cardiac arrest on the table. At this point, I was fortunate that they were the doctor at the hospital in Long Island that was affiliated with one of the really good hospitals in the city, Columbia Presbyterian. And I just remember at that point waking up, being now from the Long Island hospital at Columbia Presbyterian, and they told me I was going to need a heart transplant. I didn't really understand what was happening, and I thought it was like my brother's heart surgery. So I'm like, sure, sign me up. But not realizing what went into it, I was just a teenager. And then when I was there, I had a Boviac tube, which is the permanent tube in your chest to give you medicine 24 hours a day. I couldn't walk 2 feet without being winded, so I had to use a wheelchair. They try to make your life as normal as possible in the hospital. They take you out of your school. I was in Hicksville Middle School at the time, and then they put you into the city schooling system, even though it's through the hospital. But there, if you want to go to the school, there's a floor that has a school on it. You can. If not, They could bring you paperwork up there. I got to play Oregon Trail, and I remember writing a paper, I think, about the Bronx Zoo. So it's just a very different environment. And they have child life there, which is really just trying to help you not focus on everything. And they give you video games. You can make arts and crafts, which I loved. If you felt good, they had a whole kind of wing in the hospital for that. So you could go down. I even met this boy, Larry. He came in, and I remember I was a 13-year-old girl. He was like tall, dark, and handsome. He was 14, and he could walk. He had heart failure, and he could walk. And I was like, wow, you could walk. And to this day, I remember our parents would take us over to the adult side of the hospital, and we thought it was like a whole big thing. Like, we thought they were really sneaking us out for a little bit. The nurses knew about it now. I know that. But at 13, we thought we were being rebels. I even would tell the children, like, if you take your telemetry unit and make it go around the circle, see if how far it takes the nurses to come and see you. You know, they try to give you a normal childhood, but it was different because my brother was young, and it was hard for him because we have a very small family. I'm Italian, mostly Italian, and a little Irish. My dad's 100% Italian, so he just likes me to tell people I'm 100% Italian. But sadly, my parents, both of their parents had died when they were very young. And then I only got to meet two of my grandparents, and they died when I was very young. My brother didn't even get to meet anybody. So we only have an uncle and an aunt by marriage. So a lot of friends had helped out bringing my brother back and forth from the school home, but my parents were there every night. And it was frustrating because even for them, you don't really know what's going to happen in transplant world. They kept telling me that somebody was going to have to pass away for me to live, but I didn't fully understand that. Even to the point, there was a few times that they would put me on the phone and say, we have a heart for you. And then it wouldn't be for me. It would go to somebody else. Now they realize they probably shouldn't do that to a 13-year-old because I wasn't 18. But there's just so many things going on. My family and Larry's family tried to make it normal. But people didn't really come visit from Hicksville. A lot of people didn't understand. I was the first one in the district that was going to need a heart transplant. So people were scared to bring their children around me for many different reasonings. So thank God for my family and a few people that did come, and Larry and I. And he was just really a big staple in my life. But there in the hospital, days turned into weeks were turning into months. And I ended up getting my transplant on July 6, 1996 from a young boy named Matthew, who was 14 years old from upstate New York.
Okay. So I want to just, as we get started in your story, and we pretty well have gotten started, but I want to let people know today that Jennifer is talking to us from dialysis, as she is also waiting a kidney transplant. And so you got your heart transplant in 1996. And right now you are on the list for another heart transplant?
I'm waiting to get listed. As a child, I didn't realize what went into listing. I got sick really fast. I ended up in the hospital. At that time, your parents make all these decisions. So now doing it as an adult, it's a very different ball game. And heart and kidney, a lot of times, I always call them good cop, bad cop, or like having two parents. One says left, one says right. Because if the kidney people tell you to do something, the heart people tell you to do something else, vice versa. So I was able to do my evaluation for the heart first. I ended up that I was from a hospital, Columbia Presbyterian, but a few years ago, I moved to Northwell Hospital, which is on Long Island. And that's really, honestly, just longevity-wise, it's closer. Mm-hmm. My hospital in the city, it's a whole day procedure. You have to either take the train, a subway, a bus from the train, or you're driving. And driving from Long Island could be an hour. It could be 4 hours. It really just depends upon the bridges and traffic that day. And once you're in New York City, it's kind of hard to maneuver around. So we made the decision. And because Northwell had just started their program not long prior, we had tried to get in beforehand, but they wouldn't really take me in. And then my doctor from Columbia Presbyterian had retired. Actually, both my doctors did. Kind of good. I outlived both my doctors retiring. But I said, okay, it's time to be somewhere else. And I knew somebody, and they were able to get me into the Northwell program. So I did my heart evaluations first, got everything done. And then I was approved for heart transplant, but they technically can't list you until kidney approves you, and then they can dual list you. So I had just done my kidney evaluations a few weeks ago, which is pretty much the same as heart, but it's like two separate entities. A lot of the testing, even if you go for an echo one day, you got to get another echo for kidney. If you get an x-ray for one, you got to get another x-ray. And it's one of those things, if you're signing into the program, you pretty much, if they tell you jump, you jump. So, it's a lot of faith that you have to have faith in your doctors. I am Catholic. I was born in a, Catholic household. My mom's very religious. My dad's not so much, but as I'm getting older, my faith and my boyfriend and I, who I just will be dating actually tomorrow, a year. So it's a new relationship and everything just sort of connected. It's strange how life happens that way. I'm going through the craziest of my health journey right now. And we met at a really crazy time in my life, but things just work.
Well, that's good then. And he is cool with all this and standing by your side. That's amazing for a new relationship. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very blessed. And I wasn't able to have children in this life. It just wasn't meant to happen. For women, they're very scared because when you go to get pregnant, you have to change a lot of your anti-rejection drugs to help the baby. Now, there's some women that really say, I want to do it. And I know both sides of the coin, people that have had children and they were fine. And I know people sadly that have children and the children were fine, but then something happened to them. So it's still very new in transplant world. I'm hoping that as the drug regimens change and get better, later on more women can have babies and make it safe for everybody. But it just wasn't meant to be in my cards. But my boyfriend has 3 children and I look at them as if they're mine. They're older kids, but to me, they're still children.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good then. Of course, you can, have them in your life also. Now, let me ask you this, and this is going to be a strange question, but because I was sickly as a child too, but I'm going to ask you, was it rougher now knowing that you're looking for a kidney and a heart transplant, or was it harder as a child? Because as you said, and it's funny, you said the same thing that I said when I was a kid, it was my normal. So all the hospital life and, feeling, not being able to run and in your case, walk and do things that, other children could do. You really didn't, you thought about it, but your normal was your normal. And it sounded like, so your childhood was a lot like mine. It was your normal. So you didn't feel that different, did you?
No, I got sick really fast. So everything sort of changed for me really quick. I was healthy and then sick within a month. So things kind of just happened. But after transplant, it was hard because they tell you it's your new normal, right? It's now you're in this world where you're this adult really in a child's body going through. I remember that I was on the prednisone. I'm still on it today, but a very low dose, 2.5 milligrams. But back then they had us on such high dosages. I just remember being angry all the time and hungry. And I blew up. I looked like a little marshmallow. I was just like a little angry elf always walking around. And back then, though, they make it where they have child life in hospitals where you're going to school in the hospital. And I think they try to talk about it, but it's not always in your face. They try to figure out ways to make it you're not really thinking about it. As an adult going through this, even now, to this day, when they give you that paperwork and they tell you all the statistics, and then, they always tell you, it's going to be hard, right? It's going to be hard. I'm like, well, I didn't think pre-transplant be easy, but I know they have to tell you these things. But sometimes I wish they not talk to us like children, but they look at us like individuals. I think a lot of the times, even when they were first telling me that it was at the point where I was probably going to need a second heart transplant and a kidney transplant, it's very easy for them to say, oh yeah, we just put new ones in, take it out. This is the soul for me. I met my donor mom in 2015. It was years after my transplant, but I think the way it worked out was the way it should have, because I was able to grow and have a life and she was able to grieve a little bit more, because if we would have met when I was a child, I think that it wouldn't have been good for either of us. Mm-hmm. So to me, giving up this heart is not just, it's broken again, let's give you a new one. I would try to explain to them. I said, there's a lot that goes into it. And it was really my nephrologist that we had talked about that I'd probably end up on dialysis prior to getting a transplant. And it was getting there. And it was very hard for me to wrap my head around everything, right? I'm an adult, but now they're like, you're going to need a transplant and it's going to be like this and all these different things. And my nephrologist at the time really sat me down and said, Jen, Matthew doesn't want you to die with this heart. And if it wasn't for Dr. Bellucci, I don't know. He was really very integral in making that decision for me. Because even when I was doing the heart evaluation, the surgeon was very honest. He goes, you had this transplant a very long time. You have to have a really strong why. He goes, we could give you organs, but if you don't have a strong why, it's not going to work. And he goes, I know patients that have had transplants for a very long time. I always tell them, you make that decision. You could choose not to do it again. And nobody had ever really told me that. And I'm not going to lie, for a split second, as you're signing the obscene piece of paper, right? You're signing everything. I'm going, what am I doing? I had a good life, but then I said, you know what? I want to have a longer life. I'm 42 years old. I want to have a life with Ron. I want to have a life with my parents, his children. We ended up adopting a little Yorkie not long ago because he already had a dog, and we went to go look for a cat. And we ended up with a 14-year-old Yorkie. So we have a life, and we can live a long life. I think a lot of times with transplant, when you talk to a lot of us, nobody's really saying, oh, I hope to be 100, right? And not many people that I speak to at a transplant are looking at life and longevity of number, age, but it's more, we want more time.
Yes.
More years. So that's really what I want. I just want to get listed because right now I'm in this it's like this weird hamster wheel, but nothing can happen because I'm not listed. So I'm just doing the motion. I've been on dialysis now for over 6 months, and it's like watching paint dry.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're here, you see the same people, you can't do much. You can't really, you're just here. So I just can't wait to get listed and hopefully start the next chapter of my life.
Well, that's amazing that you have that attitude. And I really believe in all of my endeavors through transplantation and being sick as a child with my first open heart surgery at 22 months old. And I'll tell anybody that is going through anything, whether it be transplantation, cancer, or any illness, is to keep that positive attitude. And also that things are changing in the medical world every day. So what may not save your life today may be something new tomorrow that will. In fact, in 1968, I was 13 years old. I had transposition of the great arteries, which at the time was an experimental surgery. And everybody up till that time had passed away. There was a child. And so when I got my surgery, I was the oldest living 13-year-old to get that surgery. So I always tell people, think about the future and know tomorrow anything is possible in the medical world.
That's amazing. And like you said, a lot of it is mentality, and you never know. That's what I'm hoping, that the next generation of transplants, that hopefully one day the medication, because that's really what it saved our lives, but then it messes us up where many of the heart transplant people need kidney transplants, or we need retransplant later on, even with our hearts. So if they can figure out the drug regimens a little bit better, we wouldn't have as many side effects. Yeah,
now I don't know if I'm excited about this or if I'm worried about this, because this is maybe something you go through too with a transplant patient. A lot of times with your immune system being lower than everyone else's, skin cancers seem to pop up. And in the last few years, I've had just more and more and more skin cancers that need to get cut out. So right now they're in the process of changing my transplant immune system medication. And in a way, I'm worried about it. And in another way, I'm excited about it because hopefully, all these meds will continue to work, and maybe it will make me feel better and give me more energy. Because like you said, the meds take a lot out of you over your lifetime.
They do. And it's funny you say that, because so when I moved from the hospital, Columbia Presbyterian, to Northwell, the first thing they did was like, okay, we're going to try to change your drug regimen around. And I was like, what are you talking about? I've been on these same drugs for a very long time. But, they wanted to try to figure out stuff. And even stenting has become a new thing to heart transplant people. They weren't doing it at first. And now they realize that they can stent us, and hopefully we can have a few more years, or however many more years within the stents. So even that, when I came to Northwell, I ended up getting 2 different stents, one year, one a year after. And it was just part of their program, though. And because I have coronary artery disease. So in the coronary artery disease, that's just one of the things they try to stent it, but then it came to a point where I can't be stented anymore. So that's why I need the retransplant.
Now, what I was going to ask you is because I've got some stents and they're saying some of my problems were because I have donor-specific antibodies that is working like coronary artery disease, but it's actually hardening the arteries because it's trying to attack the heart and shutting it down. Is this the same problem you're going through right now?
So I was diagnosed with coronary artery disease. I'd say the first time I started talking about it was probably 6 or 7 years ago. And they had told me at that point, the issue is once you have it, it's kind of like diabetes. You can control it, but it's never going to go away. And that's where at Columbia Presbyterian, they really didn't stent us. When I moved over, they were able to stent. So the thing with it is they don't know enough about it yet, that everybody's different. I've talked to patients that have had coronary artery disease, and within a year, they need a transplant. I didn't need one right away. So sometimes I think a lot of this stuff also is so uniquely based to each of us because we have like this one common disease, but we might have this underlying thing. We might not even realize we have an underlying thing, whatever the case may be. So I'm not really 100% sure, but I know for me, I even became a vegetarian. I was like trying everything, but it just wasn't getting better.
And like I said, everybody has a different makeup, and it's funny, but as they've told me over and over again too, every transplant is different. Every patient is different. So don't expect, the same results from patient A, patient B, and patient C to be the same because there'll be 3 completely different paths. And that's something you always have to keep in mind also is that, we're not made up the same. So we're not going to have the same problems or the same great results as everyone else.
It's true. And that's why I always tell them, look at us as an individual, right? Like we're not just patients, we're individuals. We have individual needs. And I think what happens a lot of the time is sadly in this world, good things and bad things happen. So in this realm of medicine, it's just such a different environment than regular, you go to your regular doctor once a year for a checkup. So they're seeing some stuff that I think they have to almost put their own walls up, certain doctors. But I think if they really looked at it that way, that we're not just, we need a heart transplant. Well, 20 of us can need heart transplants, but 20 of us probably have very different reasonings why and what our body could take, what our body can't tolerate, just like with dialysis. Some people are able to drink a little more, take off a little more. Mm-hmm. Some people are allowed to or can only take off so much. So it's really treating us for who we are. And I think this community, the wonderful thing that I really noticed about it is through Facebook, you really meet a lot of people. So I feel that I have so many friends that I'll never maybe meet, or maybe I'd meet in person. I do the transplant games every 2 years because they have the states transplant games for us, and then they have the world games. The world games are very competitive. I've never been to them. I don't know what's going to happen after transplant, but I like going every 2 years. I compete. I hope I win a medal.
Well, good luck to you.
Some of the people in the transplant world, I'm a little bummed because next year is in Colorado, and I was actually with the Chris Clark Foundation. I was able to win an award with them years ago, so I got to meet everybody. But unless I get my transplant within like the next month, I definitely will be able to travel at that point. But you never know. I look at it as they're always miracles, right? And miracles happen every day. So I keep listening to the statistics they keep telling me, and I keep telling them, okay, when it's meant to be, it's going to be.
Now, have they told you or have you asked? And I don't know. It probably could happen either way. Are you going to maybe get both transplants at the same time? Or is it something where, we might be able to get you your heart before the kidney or the kidney before the heart? Or have they said anything?
So they explained it to me. They're very thorough, which sometimes I love. And sometimes I'm like, okay, that's a little much. But they're very thorough. They explained to me that they don't feel to just give me the kidney transplant alone because they had asked if I had a living donor, but they're afraid that because my heart's so weak, if they did that, it wouldn't be okay. So they told me and explained it as 90% of people that they do a dual organ transplant for, they'll get the heart first because the heart always dictates the kidney. So pretty much whatever they say with the heart, that's what would happen with the donor, with the kidney as well. So 90% of people get the heart transplant, and right after they put the kidney in. There is about 10% of people where they just feel that the heart's not beating in the way they need it to, and they'll put you back in the ICU for about a day because the kidney can actually be out of the body for a little more time than the heart can be. So then they would do it that way. But ideally, they do the heart and the kidney transplant pretty much right after each other.
Okay. Wow. This has been a very interesting conversation, and it's like I said, I had a heart transplant, but then because of the meds, I ended up going on dialysis and having a kidney transplant, but that was, years later. And right now, everything is, knock on wood, working great, as I had the heart in 2003 and I got the kidney in 2015.
That's great. That's really, like you said, it's just one of those amazing things. And that's why I love talking to transplant people. I met so many amazing people throughout the year. Actually, I saw because John Perkins is my friend on Facebook, and then I saw his podcast, and that's how I saw you, like the one you did with him. And I never met him in person, but I consider him one of my best friends.
Yeah, it's same. It's really funny because, like you say, the community is very close, and we meet these people, and sometimes we just meet them on the phone, or we hear them from a podcast, and we make bonds with them. In fact, since I was sickly as a child, I've had some pediatric mothers on the podcast that are talking about their children who are waiting for transplants. And, I would also immediately go back to my youth, and you would probably do the same if you were doing a podcast like this, because, I saw myself as a child in the hospital and how I felt, this was my normal, even though it wasn't normal to anyone else. And I've tried to help them through. And some of those mothers I've stayed in contact with, and it's an amazing community that we have out there, and we lean on each other a lot.
It's true. And that's what it is. Like I write a lot on Facebook, and I think it's because it's almost like a living diary for me in a way. So I'm very open and honest with it. And people have said that to me. They're like, you really share a lot about your journey and whatnot. And I think they're almost surprised because a lot of people are very private, especially when it comes to health things. But I think because I've been doing this pretty much all my life, as you said, when you get sick as a child, this is your world. It's very hard to balance, right? Because we have to live in normal world sometimes, and then we're living in sick world. So that balance is very hard. But for me, I think sharing my story, I remember how scared I was as a child. There was no Facebook back then, nothing like that. And I think if I would have had an outlet to talk to somebody, or I saw somebody's journey, it would have made me feel good. Like when I see people now that just get their transplants, or someone that said they had their transplant for 30 years or so, I get so excited.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think what's funny too, what I was just going to say is, like you had yours in 96, I had mine in 2003. But when you really look back to when we originally had our transplants, yeah, they've been around for a while, but it was still a relatively new world. And when you went out and talked to people and they said, oh, you had a transplant, well, you look so normal, or this or that. But nowadays you talk about transplants and you can talk to, anyone out there in the world, and somebody will say, oh yeah, I had a cousin or I had a friend who had a kidney transplant or a heart transplant. So it's more acceptable and more people understand it than they did back when you and I got our transplants.
People really do understand it, and they talk about it, and they say things. Can you hold on 1 second?
Yes.
Sorry, my doctor just came here. Thank you.
Hopefully the doctor gave hopefully the doctor gave you good news when you talked to him.
Yeah, really, there's not much. It's like anything else. It's kind of, it's like I said, it's like this hamster wheel, just going around, just waiting to get listed. And, they're doing a biopsy October 16th for the heart. And then for me, they've been talking about a hysterectomy, but I kind of laugh because I have a catheter in my chest. So they won't give me a fistula. They didn't want to put me under that type of anesthesia. So I'm like, you don't want to put me under anesthesia for a fistula, but you're going to give me a hysterectomy?
Yeah.
But I understand it. They're very, I ended up switching my cardiologist. I got a new cardiologist, which is good. It's hard because sometimes in our world, right, we meet these doctors, and some you mesh with, some you don't, but some you just don't work with. And I ended up getting a new cardiologist, which is really good. And He's very thorough. He even told me, he's like, I want to make sure I have a problem with PCOS, which is a woman's problem, but it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I probably would have had that transplant or not. That's the thing too. A lot of things that we do could be transplant related, non-transplant related. So he just wants to make sure that after the transplant, I don't end up bleeding out or something happens, right? We give me these organs and then now something happened. I'm like, well, that's good because that's not how I want to go out. I get the transplant successfully and now I'm bleeding out.
Yeah. It's a crazy world, that's for sure.
Yeah. So pretty much my nurse practitioner, she comes in and it's pretty much the same thing though. Like waiting, right? Everybody's just waiting. I'm waiting to get listed, then you wait for your transplant. So it's a lot of just waiting.
I remember in dialysis too, it's like, patients would come and go because, some would get transplants and, you go, oh man, it wasn't me. But, you always get that day where you do get the transplant. But, like I said, I'm hearing your story and you are one heck of a warrior. That's for sure. Well, I call many of us transplant patients warriors, but some are just a little tougher. Some are a little tougher than others. And I think you are pretty much at the top of the list, young lady.
Thank you. I try to be, like you said, we got sick as children. What were we going to do? And I think too, it's like honoring a lot of my donor, right? I really wanted to honor his legacy. And Sally, my friend Larry, I still remember to this day, he was in the hospital with me. I got my heart. And I always felt like very, as you're talking about when we see people that have transplants, I felt it because I had gotten my transplant and he was sick all his life. And then sadly, I remember I was going in for a routine biopsy about a month after my transplant. And they were doing this experimental surgery on him to try to give him more time while waiting. That was involving his heart. And he sadly, back then, we didn't have cell phones. So I remember I visited him the day before surgery. I just had my biopsy, so let me go up to say hi to him. Good luck. By the time we came home, there was a message on our answer machine that he had passed away. The surgery was fine, but then he spiked the fever after. And he was really the guy that, we made plans. Now we were 13 years old, right? So our plans were very much like we were going to go to Disney. I'm a big Disney person. I get to go sometimes 4 to 5 times a year. So that's a little rough because they really don't want me traveling right now. But I love Disney. I can't wait to go experience with my boyfriend and some of our other friends and just go there and really just be in the magic of it all. I think I love the fantasy of it. I know I'm a Disney adult, but for me, when I'm there, I wasn't a sick child. I wasn't a sick adult. I was just in the magic with everybody else. I think that's why it holds such a special place in my heart.
Well, are you talking about Disney World Orlando?
Yeah, I've only been to Disneyland Cali once, but I'd love to go back. I actually love Disney World. I love the hotels. I love everything about it. But Disneyland, I really love. It's hard. I don't want to say I love Disneyland more, but there's a nostalgic to it being that was Walt's first castle. And just people in California are very relaxed. So Disneyland's vibe is very different than Disney World because people are coming from all over the world to go to Disney World. In Cali, it's a lot of locals and you have some people visiting. So the people in California, it's not the same like in Disney World, you're booking everything and you're doing everything and you kind of have to do the same in Cali, but there's a little more leeway room. So I just felt that it was a little more relaxed. And the 2 parks, so you don't have all the parks like Disney World had, but there's 2 main parks and they're pretty much within walking distance to each other and Disney Springs, especially if you stay at the main hotel there.
Well, I was going to tell you.
I keep thinking about this.
I was going to tell you your next trip to Disney World in Orlando, make sure you contact me and the wife and I will come meet you and your boyfriend and maybe have lunch or dinner somewhere because I'm just mere miles away from the Magic Kingdom.
Oh, I'm jealous. See, that's why I'm jealous. You live so close to my happy place. Yes, I would love that. It keeps me going. I keep thinking about that. And I know like 6 months after you can travel. So I keep kind of hinting to them like that's going to be my first trip. And I can't wait to just go there and we'll go have fun and enjoy the castle. And I also keep telling them I've always wanted to go on the Rose Bowl float since I'm young, where they have the Donate Life float.
Now, where's this now?
And I never... So they have the Rose Bowl parade every year.
Okay.
And I don't know if you ever watched it. It's always after New Year's Day. It's like the big football game.
Yeah.
With the Rose Bowl. And they have a Donate Life float. Many OPOs send people through there or different organizations. New York's OPO, we don't really send people on the float. So I keep telling the doctors at Northwell, I know the sponsorship is it's like a $15,000 sponsorship, but you get to go with you and one other person, and it's a whole activity-based thing where you're on the float, but a few days prior, you get to go to the dinner. You get to help put the roses that actually help to make the float on. So I keep telling them, I'm like, you guys are going to send me on the float, right? You guys are going to send me on the float. I keep hinting it to them. And actually, I had to have some teeth removed because for transplant, they make us pretty much like robots, right? Like you have to be in tip-top shape.
Yep.
And I had to get some stuff removed because, if there's any risk of infection or something that's infected. So during the anesthesia, not anesthesia because I couldn't get put under, but the gas or whatever, I told him, we're going to go to Disney, right? And he said yes. And the nurses they said, see, girl, going to Disney with Jen and everybody afterwards. So they'll be meeting us there too.
Cool. Well, you let me know if you're on that float. I'll definitely be watching from home and be looking for you, young lady.
Hopefully that's when you have to have these things, right, to think about. Like, I keep thinking I just want to have the days where me and my boyfriend, I can wake up and I don't have to go to dialysis. I could kind of pee again. That's the strangest thing where you really don't pee as much. So you're limited to so little of the liquids that you have. But to not being able to pee is kind of hard. And then just thinking about Disney and the float and all these things kind of get me happy.
Well, good deal, because you continue to think about Disney and think about being on that float. If that's what gets you to your happy place, that's where I want you to be. I definitely do, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Before I do let you go, any last words or anything you want to make sure that we get out and you share with the folks that are listening today?
I think if you can, join a support group. Like Long Island Trio was a Transplant Recipient International organization. For me, is really just an amazing organization. Try to join a group if you can. Befriend other people that have transplants. Also, I know that a lot of the side effects, it's really hard, especially as you were sick too as a child. So going through this as an adult, it's hard. So only alone as a child, but there's support. There's different things. Like even one of my side effects was I lost my hair. And then only this year, I found this amazing organization, Hair We Share, that they're having a gala next week. And they've been treating me like I'm a Disney princess. So I can't go to Disney. They're bringing Disney to me. But there's always different outlets, and to really look at the bright side. And for people, I think people just don't know what they don't know. So for us, I look at it as it's kind of part of our responsibility to talk about our transplants, show people that you're not just donating an organ, but you're donating it. You're not just affecting that person, but they have their family member. They have their friend again. But tragedies happen every day. We're not asking people, we don't want anything bad to happen to people, but in tragedy, there's hope for others.
Amen. Now, I do want to ask you one other question that I forgot to ask, and I apologize for that. But now you say you have, after a few years, met your heart donor family. Have they listened to the heartbeat inside you? And how did you feel and how did they feel at the moment?
Yes. So pretty much by chance, we met them years later. We realized now. So back in the day, there was so many different organizations where the organs could have come from. Where now we know it's UNOS, right? That's our umbrella. So everything goes through them. But back then, they had many different organizations. So we were writing letters, and she had wrote a letter that I received. But after that, we wrote back, and we never heard anything. So we thought, okay, maybe she just wanted to write that first initial letter. But I found out when I met her, she was writing letters, I was writing letters. It just wasn't going anywhere because that organization had closed down, where now it's under UNOS umbrella and everything's a little more structured. So I ended up having a house fire at my house, sadly. And through that, though, my dad had some different documents that were kind of in a safe. So we had to take it out because we had lost the whole house. Like we were at a house for about a year. And the saddest part was a lot of the pictures. The possessions you could buy again, but moving the pictures. But as we went through the safe, we saw the letter again. And at that point, one of my ex-boyfriends at the time kind of realized that you could sort of see an address if you put the letter like up to the light, and Sina found one. And then another ex, it sounds horrible, but now I'm with my forever boyfriend and hopefully fiance and hopefully husband one day. But I only had a few boyfriends. It just just kind of as part of the story. And he sort of was able to contact some family members of my donor family through Facebook. And then I ended up talking to my donor brother, and we sort of made the connection. And I just remember talking to my donor mom, and we just really wanted to meet each other. She's in Florida, and she couldn't come out of the state for many different reasons. But I just wanted to meet her. And then I was getting nervous because I was like, well, what am I going to say to this woman if I can figure out how to meet her? And sadly, I met her a long time after. So you're looking, I met her in 2015. I had the transplant in 96. My way I met was not as unique. And one woman from the transplant game, Martha Mason, my friends had put out a GoFundMe because I really wanted to get there. And she pretty much paid for the whole trip for me to go. And my hospital at the time, Columbia Presbyterian, got light of what was happening. They sent the Daily News and Newsday with me down to Florida. So there's a beautiful picture that Tim Boyles took, and he didn't realize how amazing it was going to really become. Because the first thing she did when we got off the plane and I met her was really place her head against my chest, and she got to listen to her son's heartbeat again. And he captured that moment. And there's actually a YouTube video of her listening to my heart, and she said, "That's my boy, and that's the power of transplant." She had said that Matthew would have wanted to donate his organs if he could have said so. So she made that come true.
Well, that's great. Well, again, Jennifer, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and I wish you nothing but the best, and hopefully all your dreams come true and it becomes a magical world for your love of Disney.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. And hopefully soon you'll see on Facebook, all right, I'm listed, and hopefully sooner I'll be like, yeah, I'm going into surgery, and you'll see me after Facebook when I'm typing.
All right, and then
good luck to you with everything.
And when you get to Florida and you're at your Disney World, you make sure I know. And like I said, we'll go have a quick lunch or just meet on Main Street at downtown, Disney or something. But definitely the best of luck to you.
I would love that. Thank you. I look forward to that.
Let us thank Jennifer for sharing her story today. And be sure to join us each week for a new heartfelt episode. And if you have a transplant story, email us giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, and don't forget to like and share this episode with family and friends. And we would appreciate that 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Another podcast you might enjoy is myself and former radio partner Bill Stevens. BJ and Bill, the podcast, on the Podcast Playground Network, as we'd like to thank them for making this podcast possible. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey and reminding us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.
He was running on empty, heart fading fast. Doctor said, man, you ain't gonna last. But a stranger's kindness, a gift so true, turned the night sky into something new. He got a second chance, he got a brand new spark, like a freight train rolling back from the dark. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. 15 years later, the road got rough. The fight ain't over when the climb is tough. Needed a kidney, the race was on. Another hero stepped up, kept him strong. Every breath he takes is a tale of hope. One life saved, another can cope. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. Doctor's hands, a donor's grace, running on down to a brand new place. Second chances don't come twice, but when they do, man, they feel so nice. So let Let's spread the word, let the people know. One yes today lets a miracle grow. You don't need wings just to save a man, just a little love, a helping hand. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. BJ still rocking, still standing tall, thanks to the ones who gave it all. Gift of life, hear the sound. Pass it on, pass it down. The Gift of Life podcast, hosted by BJ Odom. Listen now.